Welcome to Legislative Watch edition of FY Idaho. I'm your host, Elizabeth Allen Hodge, and today I'm speaking to the Senate Majority Caucus Leader, Russ Fulcher, who's from the 21st District, third term, and Ken Roberts. Representative Roberts is the Majority Caucus Leader for the House. He is from District 8 in his fifth term. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Of course, the discussion always centers around budget, and so today I'd like to take a little bit of time to talk about the budget in terms of, we always talk about taxes, but I want to also focus in on spending today. And Senator Fulcher, I'd like to start with you and give us a brief budget overview.
Elizabeth, thank you. And I'll try to frame the scenario that we're facing right now. There are three primary areas in the state budget that really drive all of the spending, and that's education, which is 65%, health and welfare, which is about 22%, and public safety, which is about 9%. So those three budgets comprise 94% of everything that the state spends. That means that there's only about 6% of dollars in the overall state budget that really is variable, that we have any direct kind of control over. Now, if you take that and you consider that the revenue to the state is down approximately 23% over the last 2 years, 23%, that's almost a fourth. There you kind of start to come to grips with the challenge that we're facing. Mathematically, you cannot take that 23% out of the overall pie and not affect that big three. So education is going to get impacted. Health and welfare, we have to touch those bigger pieces of the pie in order to balance the budget this year.
And I guess the governor, the projections are falling something like $12 million behind anticipated.
Actually, Elizabeth, those numbers that we've talked about, when we left to the legislature last year, there was an estimated revenue number that was being used that was adjusted down in August to a $2,377 million number. When we came back to town in basically late December, 1st of January, that revenue number was adjusted once again down to $2,349 million. And from that number is what we are referencing now. So we've had two decreases, and from that number, the December numbers were down $12.5 million. And it looks like January is going to be somewhat similar to that. We'll know that answer in the next day or two. So we're continuing to see the revenues decline. I want to talk just for a moment about those revenues and what that's a reflection of. The calendar year 2008, basically January through December of 2008, we had about 5 months of fairly decent revenues in the state of Idaho, and the economy had not yet gone down to the point it had. And when people file their 1040 forms for the federal government, and when they file their state returns, they typically either get a refund in January, February, or they pay the tax in April. Of those 5 months that were good or fairly decent in 2008, people paid their taxes on in April of 2009, so you had a delay. We missed the mark that particular month by $163 million back last year. And now what we're dealing with is the revenues based on the 2009 tax year, or calendar year, January of 2009 through December of 2009. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know about you, but most of the businesses and people I know didn't have a very good year in 2009. And it was pretty much 12 months of reduced revenues in their businesses or in their paychecks or in the hours that they worked. And so that's reflective of what we're anticipating for the revenues that will come in the next couple months, specifically April. So we're not out of the woods yet, and even though you may hear some positive signs in the economy, just remember that the revenues into the state of Idaho typically lag by anywhere from 6 months to about 15 months because there's that delay time. So we're down significantly. I don't think we're quite out of the woods yet, but we have set a revenue number that they'll base on for the 2010 year. Remember, we have to get out of 2010. We're still in 2010 budget year. We've got basically 4.5 months left, and we're going to try to use a number we think of around $2.28 billion.
I spoke with Representative Bowles earlier, and he said he's going to get the numbers to you guys on Friday, and they hope to set the budget by the 22nd of March, I guess.
Yeah, that's their target date anyway at this point in time. We'll actually, we're going to meet tomorrow in leadership, and we'll talk about what that target number will be for the 2010 and 11 budgets.
Well, you know, I'm with you. I see evidence every day. Of course, I'm in real estate as Senator Fulcher, and I've never seen so many people losing their homes. And there's a lot of commercial buildings that are going vacant right now, too. Beautiful new buildings that are sitting vacant. And I think anymore it's not just a matter of Idahoans saying, you know, what are we going to have for dessert? It's forget the dessert, you know, what are we going to have for dinner? And they have to tighten their belts, and they're saying the legislature has to do the same thing, but you're saying how?
We really have, on a 30,000 foot level, we've got two primary options. Either one, we can entertain some type of revenue increase strategy. Number two, we can focus completely on cutting spending. And then you can also argue that you can talk about reducing taxes and reducing spending too, but realistically, I think it's going to be one of those two. We're either going to have to focus on one of those two. I believe that Representative and I are in the same thought process that raising taxes is not an option. For the reasons you mentioned and others, to add burden to the taxpayer right now is the worst thing that we could do.
Absolutely.
And so we have to focus on the other side and how do we cut spending? And I've used this analogy before, but when do you absolutely positively lose weight? It's when your doctor says you have to lose some weight now or you're going to die or you're going to get very, very sick. Well, that's where we are from a government spending standpoint. We've got to cut spending. We have to just not cut spending, but restructure government as a whole. So that's where that focus is going, and there's a number of different strategies that we're looking at and how to do that so that when we do come out of this, and we will come out of this, we're a more efficient government, and quite frankly, we're providing the services that government was intended to provide, not necessarily a lot of the things that we are providing now.
You're talking about 6% that you can't take it all out of that 6%, whether you like it or not. Education is going to feel it. Health and welfare is going to feel it. Corrections is going to feel it. And every time you start touching one of those areas, people are going to start screaming, we've got to have public safety. You know, we have to have, you know, penal institutes that handle, and we've got to have our children educated. So how do you address that?
A lot of times we have, in the past, we have adopted legislation or rules or policies as a state that was built on an assumption that the revenue stream of the state would continue to increase into perpetuity. And now that we've hit a significant downward pressure on our revenue stream, it's brought out the errors within the laws of the state of Idaho. We have, for instance, in education, we can see that we have laws that say you cannot pay a staff member less than the previous year, or for any less days the contract. So
when we come back from the break,
okay,
we'll take that up. I'm Elizabeth Allen Hodge. The program is FY Idaho.